Arik Yelovitch, co-founder of Adaptive Insurance. Welcome to the Vertical SaaS podcast.
Hey Gavin, thank you for having me.
Yeah, new company, new title, new look. It's like a new man since the last time we've done a podcast.
Yeah, it's been a few miles.
Well, it's great to have you back on. I am very much looking forward to the chat. We're going to cover quite a bit today, but for the listeners, there'll be many that do know who you are because of both of our involvement over the years. Yours being many years in Insurtech. But for the ones that maybe don't, why don't you please give us a brief introduction about who you are?
Yeah, so Arik Yelovitch, backend engineer in my core, started my career, I'm afraid to say more than 20 years ago. I'm still young, but not as young as I used to be. Started as a Java developer back in Israel and went through enterprise, big companies until 2016 when I was presented an opportunity to join a startup named Hippo Insurance in the US. Never thought about moving, but the opportunity was like, relocating and trying something new, B, the opportunity of really trying to create something new and innovative in an industry that is considered at least more old-fashioned or 200 years of history, which didn't move a lot back at that time, and technology that was starting to show itself and enable more and more sophisticated stuff. So in 2017, I moved with my family to California, to the Bay Area, joined Hippo Insurance as one of their first 10, quickly became director of engineering there, spent there an amazing 4 years, met the most incredible people I could have dreamed of. And one of them is my co-founder. One of them is also our head of marketing and Byington, and many others. After 4 years, briefly went to the fintech to create Karma, and from here to I moved to Austin, joined Delos Insurance as their CTO after a brief moment of consulting, and had an amazing time there. That's where we met.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike came to me about more than a year ago, and we always wanted to start something together. We just didn't have the opportunity. And he came with this notion of the parametric insurance and adaptive. And yeah, we took a leap of faith together. We decided to take a leap of faith together. And I said goodbye to Kevin and the Dell's team, heavily hearted, to join this new adventure, which is my last startup. As I promised that Dell's will be my last startup, this is my last startup. Maybe it'll be another last, but I don't know.
Yeah, I reckon you've still got another one in you. I reckon you've got another one
We'll
in you
see.
after
I don't have
this.
much hair to lose anymore, so I don't know like how
I
much
don't
I
know.
can.
I reckon it makes you more aerodynamic. I reckon you can do things. You can
Sure,
do things
I
quicker.
can bike faster for sure.
Well, do you know what? That's perfect kind of way to segue into the next bit. You said opportunity wasn't really the opportunity there, and I think for a lot of people thinking about doing the leap of they can spot a lot of problems in an industry that they are inherently involved in. For you, it was insurance. Me similarly, but not as long and obviously deeply embedded into the product side and as you were with Hippo and Delos. But yeah, I just think for people that are maybe when you said there wasn't quite an opportunity to do it, like what did you mean? Were you just do you mean that in the sense of you just hadn't quite found the right like wedge to build a startup around, or was it something else that you felt holding you back?
I think were busy, and
Mm,
both Mike and I were busy with he was a consulting, very successful consultant, and I was kind of sucked into Delos and built everything there from bottom up, and from I create their AWS accounts and stuff like that. So it's like building everything from scratch. We always say a CTO in a startup is a developer with extra responsibilities. It is what it
hmm
is.
mm,
And I think we always kind of wanted to start something with a few more people even, but it never came to fruition, right? To start something of your own, to co-found a company takes more than an idea, right? You need to, if it's the first time, you need to, it's helpful to find mentors, to find, are you bootstrapping it? Are you not bootstrapping it? Because there's a lot of different venues you can go with and risks you can take on yourself. And it also depends on your family situation, right? How old are your kids? If they're before college or in elementary school, how much risk you can take in
Mm.
starting something and be ready to fail. Because if
Yeah.
startups don't succeed necessarily, most of them do fail. We hope to be the exception, of course. Everybody hopes to be the exception.
Mm.
But it's something that you have to take into account all the time when you're founding a company versus you going into a company, regardless of what round it is, right? Hippo I joined after round A, Delos I joined after seed. It's not that you have a 10 years runway and I can't say the federal government now is the most secure place. I would give an example a year ago that you joined the federal government and you have a life tenancy. But
Hmm.
overall, in the bigger companies, which I was before startups, if project A will close, project B will open. It's it's not very common to completely be kicked out of the company unless it's collapsed. In a startup, you have a runway. You have 2 years
Mm.
runway. That's what,
Yeah.
and even that is not promised, right? They can say, if you have 2 years, we'll probably survive a year and a half without revenue, without another investment. Nobody promises you next round, right? It's not a guarantee. So that's part of the risks of, do you start your own company? Do you join an existing one? Do you join a startup at all?
Mm.
And stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so many factors, isn't there? But I think you outlined a lot of them. And but at some point, you've just got to say, "Fuck it," haven't you? And you've got to go for it. Like,
Yeah,
because the main difference is like you've got two, three kids. I've got one. Uh, there was never a right time for me to launch it. Really, I was never going to have 12 months of money there to pay myself. Never. Like, I just don't. I just yeah, it's very hard to do that in London. But when you're working for a company, you're taking a salary, right? At Delos, at Hippo, and Bio, you get equity and stuff, but you're taking a decent salary every month. I mean, how long have you been building Adaptive for now? Is that just coming up for 1 year?
we're coming up for I'm building it for 1 year now, and we hope to go live very very soon. And we are in the right trajectory. It feels like we raised money and everything, which was a very
Hmm.
big event for us. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and again, the promise of a startup, and that's what I'm telling future employees, is not about, as you said, it's not about the salary, it's not about the compensation. The compensation should make you feel comfortable in a sense that you don't go into debt. That's the hope,
Hmm.
right? Again,
Hmm. Hmm.
to the extent of a minus pluses. But the promise is the options, right? Is the equities. We make it successful, then everybody's enjoying it. If we don't, then hell, we got experience. So let's move to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I agree. Some of it is like the hell with it. Let's jump into the water. If it's 2016 for me, then I moved my entire family across the world, like the other side of the world.
Mm.
And my wife and I always said, like, hell, maybe if it fails and we have to go back home, fine. We had an amazing 2 years in California. We've seen parks which we would never seen, right? We see as tourists because you don't go to a county park or
Hmm.
you go here and there when you're a tourist, right? When you come to the US as a tourist, you plan national parks and very specific places. And the kids
Yeah.
will learn English and we go back home. It's okay. Uh,
Hmm.
8.5 years later almost, and we're still here in the US.
Yeah, and the same can be said for the company. Like money can be made back. You just get another job. You go work for someone else.
Exactly.
So I think in the wake of Gen AI as well, post we're just seeing a lot of operators, a lot of non-technical, unsophisticated people with tech that can now build companies, and we're seeing a lot more of that. I guess risk mitigation. I think just I've seen a lot more. It feels like a bit of a seed bubble at the moment, from what I'm looking at. Not seen many graduate into the kind of Series A and B, but certainly a lot of companies popping up at seed. And we're going to come back to the comp talk because I think it's something that getting insight on early stage comp, how people structure it, how you can sell that to someone who knows nothing about insurance or the space that you guys are in, which is of course the intersection of AI and climate tech innovation. How you can again sell equity because, as you say, you need people to be comfortable. You want to get some exceptional talent in the early days, and that usually sometimes requires a logo or two. And then how do you then compete with them? So we're going to come back to that. But coming back to adaptive, AI is kind of is absolutely transforming everything, of course, but climate change is transforming climate change. The prediction is and rapidly becoming one of the most powerful tools available to predict. You were building cap models at Delos in a very similar space. I'm assuming that's where the genesis maybe came from the idea. I don't know, but it'd be good to get insight to that. But But yeah, I guess how important is technology to climate mitigation? You know, like, and how important is what you're building to I guess climate tech innovation? Probably a good point to just summarize what Adaptive are, what you guys have built in GridProtect, and yeah, just give us a bit of an insight into
Yeah,
what's going on in the
exactly.
industry.
So take a step back. What Adaptive is? Adaptive is a parametric insurtech.
Hmm.
The first test will be parametric insurtech. We want to expand beyond that, but we won't talk about that for now. But parametric insurance is a bit different than the traditional insurance. It's if I had to summarize, it's event-based insurance. We
Yeah.
insure businesses for a specific event. Our first product will be power outage for short durations, up to 24 hours trigger, not up to 24 hours duration. And I'll explain the difference in a second.
Hmm.
And basically, if an event happens, the policy pays in a very short time. It doesn't count against you. And it either renews again or it just finishes its term. But businesses and even private people, but we starting with businesses, can get their funds real quick without going through seven divisions of hell in getting claim adjusters and having total disaster and having 3 months to wait and et cetera, and having their policy canceled on them because they filed a claim. So the reason we think that this is the prime time for Insurtech on parametric Insurtech is the same reason that in 2016 Insurtech generally started. There was more data back then that became available.
Hmm.
Nowadays with climate tech, and that's exactly regardless of the reason climate tech started, there are more and more companies in the climate tech area which automate stuff, which can predict stuff. AI plays a major role because you can't always do the things that NOAA and NASA are the oldest one. We didn't use AI for generations, and they didn't progress as much as things progressed in the last 5 years. And AI, we'll come back to that. AI is not the solution; it's a multiplier. Like anything in the technology world, we're not the solution. We're a multiplier. We're enablers that enable other fields to progress rapidly. That's what we are. If sometimes think that tech is the solution, I personally disagree.
Hmm.
So I think we are now at the point that we're able actually to provide the technology that enables the parametric insurance to go on lower scales. Parametric insurance was very common, more common last few years for big agriculture, for big companies, for big things that doesn't require a lot of data and can be handled even manually if needed. We're going to lower scale businesses, small and medium businesses, which require very fast iterations. We need a good, solid underwriting to prevent, the 2016 loss ratios that happened with Insurtech back then. For good reason, it happened back then, but when we talk about the industry, it's not the same anymore. It's not 10 years ago. So climate tech is a major driver in enabling us to build the product. And we are
Hmm.
really, when we define ourselves, we don't necessarily define ourselves as, hey, we are pure Insurtech. No, we are somewhere in the middle. We are trading between the two fields. We are very much into the climate tech and we have great partners and we're building an insurance product. So I think we are 60-40 even between
Hmm.
climate tech and Insurtech.
Yeah, I was thinking that how do you classify yourself? You know, remember we were talking about we done the podcast with Delos, and I was saying it's like an MGA, like just that definition in insurance. But I think it's neither, like you said. It's probably leaning more towards climate than it is insurance.
The
Just
MGA
writing
is the
that, just writing that.
vessel,
Yeah.
to bring the product out there to be able to cover a pain point, what we like to
Mm.
call, and I think Anne came with that, what we like to call death by a thousand cuts. Businesses
Hmm.
do not usually suffer catastrophic loss and shut down. It happens, right? Hurricanes happen, tornado happen, like flooding happen, but that's not the major events that happen. It only counts for 2-3% of the reasons that businesses shut down their doors because there's no doors to shut down, basically. But most businesses suffer because they had events, short duration events that caused them to lose revenue, that caused them business disruption. And then they weren't able to pay their employees. They lost foot traffic. They had food spoilage. They had their equipment shorted because something happened, or whatever happened. The bridge closed because of flood, and they didn't have anybody coming into the store. So a lot of reasons that not necessarily uh, happen due to damage or big event that causes catastrophic damage. And that's exactly where we think we can excel and help businesses and consumers in mitigating that so businesses can stay afloat for longer.
Mm. this time around, starting a company, you joined again at the seed stage in your previous one, so effectively like a co-founder. When you're getting that point across about the problem that Adaptive are solving, what was your experience of fundraising in the past year, given just general market conditions? Uh, and just a bit more of a concentration on capital. Did you notice any differences from raising funds with, say, Delos 3 years ago to Adaptive now? Was there any massive differences in what VCs were looking for? I guess just I'm asking that more for insight for those that are probably going through a very similar part of their journey at the moment.
So I think the main differences between, I would say, Hippo and now, back then, and one of the reasons that Insurtech 1.0 is what it is
Mm.
because VCs just threw money in. And we were laughing that our co-founder Asaf there, would come back from lunch with a check. For every VC lunch he went to, he came back with a check. They threw tons of money because they were considered as any other startup, and nobody cared about the other side of, okay, you're getting money in, but you also need to pay claims, right? You don't sell Lexus. You basically need to balance your shit at the end of the day. I
Mm.
think with both Delos and Adaptive and any InsurTech MGA that coming to the market, and I know of a few that didn't succeed, it's very hard to prove a point if you don't bring something innovative. You have to bring something to the equation that is not the old same. Like if I just going in Open MGA, I know two of them that tried it and a consultant for them, and they had an amazing idea of platforms, but the core of the MGA was homeowners, was auto, was very, very standard, nothing innovative there, and they didn't succeed
Mhm.
because VC would invest because the revenue is not very great, the return is not amazing, and besides finding capacity and other stuff, insurance is not like let me open an MGA and I'll sell insurance. You need a lot of things to get in order to be able to sell insurance. So I think the innovative part of the new MGAs, what we call Insurtech 2.0, is bringing the innovation. If Dell's brought the fire, we're bringing the entire parametric thing. We took it even a step further because others are still in the traditional homeowners and auto, which is amazing, which we need, right? We need more sophistication there and we need better underwriting because we need to adjust faster. We take it to a whole new niche of, okay, how do we provide pinpoint solutions for things that the traditional industry just can't cover? They can't adjust fast enough. Even companies, insurtechs like Delos and others, they won't be able to adjust fast enough because they rely on traditional carriers and stuff like that. And their algorithm is homeowners, and that's fine. They have more sophistication in the homeowners underwriting, but it's still at the end of the day, it's a homeowners product. We're
Mm.
going with, as I said, a parametric niche that enables solutions. And if you want, you coming to me as a business, say, I have a need, there is a good chance that if we see that there is a need in the market, we'll be able to adapt really, really fast
Mm.
and create a product which covers that need. We don't need to cover the stamp collection and we don't need to cover water backup and stuff like that. We cover specific pain point that businesses and consumers have with a reasonable price. Think about it, and we like to give the example of the cable industry and the streaming industry. The
Mhm.
cable has 600 channels, you watch maybe two. Maybe it's time to keep just a few of them and then start streaming, right? I want to use Netflix, it covers that need. I use Hulu, I use Paramount Plus, or whatever. So people started to combine all kind of streaming bundles, and maybe they kept the cable, maybe the cable was not necessary anymore. In our example, the cable is still necessary because you need homeowners for mortgage, you need auto for legality stuff, but other things, you just kind of pick and choose what covers best your needs in real life.
Mm. And throughout that process, what do you feel? What do you felt was more important to securing the investment that you require to scale the product and the business? Was it your process of attaining investment, or was it your pitch?
I think
What
it
do you?
was both. I think it was the pitch of we are not going to be only one shop product. We're going to
Yeah.
have the climate tech leg. We have like the footstep. We have like in the climate tech attracts a lot because climate tech is a very hot topic. So I
Hmm.
think the promise of yes, we're building a product. We're building the first product out of the gate, and we know how to build products. The experience that both Mike and I have in the industry. Mike has like gazillion years of experience in big companies and small companies. He basically built the underwriting and the entire, I would say, insurance stuff in at Hippo. and the amount of experience there and the ability for us to show we can pivot really fast. And insurance is just, as I said, it's the first step in the adaptive platform we want to build. We want to build a holistic solution at the end of the day for everything. Again, we need to start with something. We need to create all kind
Mm.
of proof of concepts, and that's why we started with MGA. But I
Yeah.
think the main pitch is the promise of what adaptive can do in the climate tech era and how we can leverage all kind of resources that are coming every day now. We're talking to new companies every day almost, and some of them are amazing, some of them are less, some of them are more mature, some of them are less. And we're gonna test and leverage everything we can and find what we like and use it. And there's no shame there. Like we're gonna try 10 things, we'll fail in 8, we'll find the right 2, and then we'll multiply that to 4 and to 8 and to 16 and continue
Mm.
forward.
And how did you validate who? I mean, you're saying you're speaking to businesses every day. How did you validate your market? Is it mid-market that you're focused on, like, or yeah? I'm keen just to get an insight on, I guess, one, how you addressed that this was definitely the entry point. MGA, GridProtect, this is our wedge. How did you go about just again validating that, but also, yeah, what type of businesses are you mainly working with at the moment?
So the nice thing for us as a startup, and I spoke about a bit about the less experience, like we are, I would say Mike and I are on the less experienced founders, right? We have a lot of experience. I have a lot of experience in tech. Mike has a lot of experience in insurance. We never founded a company, right? That's a different animal,
Yeah.
different breed. It's much more, everything is on you. So I think we are like first time founders, and we were very lucky to have Monta Climate with Philip Cream as our kind of our incubation and mentors, and able to guide us through a lot of the things and find us the initial connections and very
Mhm.
much guide Mike and myself in the in the startup co-founding world. And I think part of it was they help us to establish who our audiences. We did some customer surveys, very initial ones. And then when Anne joined us and others, we did a very extensive survey, and
Mhm.
we found that there's a lot of need, like a lot of need for this kind of product because businesses are struggling. And it
Mhm.
just, they're never heard of. Like business, I think it's about 90% small and medium businesses, which make up the US business portfolio. And you hear the restaurant close every day. You never hear why they close, right? You always think, oh, they didn't have enough good enough food. They didn't find employees. They didn't have much foot traffic. But we never think about the underlying reason why, right? We're not going to survey the owners. Why did you close shop? And maybe we'll say because the power is out once a week and I can't do anything with it, or maybe because my location is bad, or maybe because the traffic light doesn't work, or maybe because there's hail here, or whatever the reason is. That's not surveyed, right? We just know that every one out of X restaurants closes after a year. Why? Nobody knows. Really understand into it deeply. So we kind of did a survey of what really makes a difference, what really are you looking for, what really pains you. And as I
Mhm.
said, death by a thousand cuts. And we got amazing results, which thank God for us, for our thank God for our for the smart people we have on board. We're actually aligned with what we thought. So sometimes it doesn't. We were lucky that it is. We actually found a few more things we didn't think about, which is
Mhm.
awesome, and we're going to plan products around it. But it kind of aligned with what we thought, and it allows us to have a lot of backwind and move forward with the product. And then I think also part of what was appealing to investors is that it's a niche that not a lot of companies cover or planning to cover, and there's a lot of potential there. Insurance is a super big market in the US, 340 million
Mhm.
people, tons of businesses, and there's no limitation basically to our product when you think about it. It doesn't have to be confined to the US. It can go north and south of the border. It can go other places.
Yeah.
Power, for instance, the reason we chose it because everybody understands power. Speaking of power, that's this week what happened in Western Europe. Everybody
Mhm.
understands power. Everybody went through a power outage. Everybody knows maybe not what the cost of it, but what's the effect of it, right? We've seen movies
Mhm.
about it, we experienced it. So it's a very relatively easy product to digest, right? It doesn't require a lot of explanation, a lot of understanding of, oh, it's homeowners. What is service line? I have no clue what it is. What is law and ordinance? I have no clue. This is a very simple product. It's a very straightforward. And with parametric, everything becomes very mainstream. Few pages to
Mhm.
quote, event happens, trigger point happens. You buy a trigger point of 8 hours, for the coverage of $10,000. The power is out for 8 hours. That's it. You're getting paid. It can last 24 hours. It can last 36 hours. It can last a week. You're getting paid after 8 hours. And that will allow you, so if it is a disaster, which is longer, you already get a cash flow after a few days to help you to get, then you go to your real insurance, like to the BOP insurance, and you collect the money from them. But that's usually a longer process. If you didn't go to the claim, I would say to the claim trigger that you can go to your BOP, then you just recuperate a few bucks, and then you can go and reinvest that if you didn't really suffer damage in how do you prepare your business better. Do you buy a generator? Do you buy a Tesla power cell? Do you do X? Do you do Y? So you kind of reinvest it into your business and enable the business to grow. And that's the thought behind that. And we're going to help on that niche as well. We're going to help. How do we bring together resiliency to the customer that now had a claim? How would you help him to use the claim money to be better prepared for the next event, right? Because the next event will happen.
Yeah. So you're working basically with any type of business that is affected by these power outages, and I'd imagine there's some partnerships in place that you'll be looking to or have put in place with like large carriers and stuff to, that's probably the nice mix that you're going with there.
Yeah, that's probably the next thing with different products and
Yeah.
different, as I said, different companies in the market, right, that can help mitigate and can help businesses to build better resiliency towards not necessarily just power, anything that is weather related.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's so purpose built. It's just driving real meaningful change. It's helping businesses and people in the hour of need when they need it most. So it must be incredibly exciting to be building and just, as I say, it's got that real purpose behind it, which I think everyone can get on board with. From the instant payout from when the event happens to the real time climate data that you're producing to then paying out, how do you feel, or how do you think your forward-looking, I guess, cap models are outperforming, like say the traditional ones that you referenced that maybe can't adjust as quickly?
Yeah, so we're
Like,
selling in
what's the
the
kind of tech?
E&S.
What's the tech? I guess I'll get a bit of an insight into the tech, just as a last point there as well. But sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So we are in the E&S market, which is a surplus, so we can adjust from the get-go. We can adjust much faster. We don't have to file any rate changes and underwriting changes, so we can adjust real quick to things that happen. We have a great tool to use to create the underwriting and the moratoriums and track the weather and track storms and track all kind of temperature flux. So we're able to predict where we want to write. We can able to basically create a rater based on we collected a lot of data. We have a very good partner that sends us. We have a partner that we can collect nationally all the outages that happens of the last 4 months. We actively collect all the power outages that happen in the U.S. and able to. That's where AI comes into the picture, which you could talk in a second, because again, it's a nice thing to have data. What are you doing with this data? But
Yeah.
we're collecting data and able to improve our algorithm all the time. So power and any other climate, the difficult part, it's not a static thing. It's a very dynamic thing. Let's talk about power for a second. Arizona is a state which has an amazing power resiliency. Michigan is a bit less, but Arizona now is growing rapidly. Weather changes, they have more rainfall and stuff like that. So it might create some hazards to their infrastructure in 5 years. While maybe Michigan is now investing in fixing the grid. So we're able to see this real time almost in a sense and adjust the trend and say, okay, let's reduce the rates here. Let's increase the rates here because at the end of the day, you want a balanced book, right? You want to keep a specific loss ratio. Get money in and pay less out because you need to be profitable. You happily pay businesses because that's your goal. That's who you are. But you need to keep it in a way that you're still making some revenue. And so we are always on the look. And that's exactly where AI comes in. There's tons of data. And if we have to put bodies on the problem, there aren't enough bodies to put there. Like we can't, again, startup, I can't hire now 70 people to start
Yeah.
data scientists to start going through the data and analyze it. And that's exactly why AI now, and this is, again, I don't want to call it luck, it's just an era we are at that AI enables growth, right? Again, we talked about it. AI is not the solution, it's enabling growth. It enables growth in the more sophisticated algorithms that exist, right? There's all the deep search In the medical field, I read a lot that AI is gonna, maybe not cure cancer, but expedite cancer research in 5 years because you won't have to have gazillion clinical trials that fail. Maybe it can cut 50% of them from the get-go and stuff like that. Weather is the same. With AI able to run so many predictions and understand trends and understanding root causes even sometimes, it will help us and others to build a more resilient product, which will able to better address issues that happen, right? It can detect even maybe in a few years things that happen we didn't even know that happened in a smaller scale. And then we're able to prepare for that as well. Like small trends that you don't notice until it happens, until it becomes real, real big. And that's where insurance can't adjust. The regular traditional insurance just can't adjust fast enough. And we see it in California. California is a prime example of tons of insurance companies just closed shop and moved out of California because they couldn't cope with the wildfire change that happened there. And places that were not under any wildfire risk back in the days now burn. But wildfire is no longer confined to California, and floods are no longer confined to the south, to the Gulf of Mexico, and et cetera, et cetera. You can argue why climate change, that's a political issue, political topic. I'm not going to get into it. Everybody entitled for their own opinion. But things are less stable. If they're less
Yeah.
stable, that means you need more dynamic algorithms. You need to adjust faster. Big companies just can't do that, not because they don't want to. Because a carrier, when it starts to turn, it takes it a while, and a speedboat, when it start to turn, it will turn immediately. That's the difference.
Mm. It's it's really interesting. I mean, I think to your point there about the timing of AI and where climate change is, like, and the tariffs as well. You're looking at the adverse weather effects storms that are pushing insurance costs up, tariffs. I think they're going up, what was a stat, 8% premium hike in 2025. I've got it here. Car insurance is up at $2,000, 502. Like, Adaptive is really in the perfect moment to be that vertical SaaS 3.0 purpose built software, and you combine all three of the elements, and it's parametric insurance, AI, and climate resilience. I mean, it really is like everything we're talking about this year in vertical software. I think it's yeah, you guys are. It's all, I guess, about timing and experience and having the right opportunity to do this. But it seems like potentially the stars may have aligned for you in terms of the timing of releasing this type of product.
Yeah, yeah, and timing is 90% of the solution. You know that. Like it's just a matter of being
Mm.
in the right place at the right time with the right people. And I'm very happy to be surrounded by the smartest people I know, and which help me to to help me to build the product on the technology side, which will serve the business, of course. And as I said, I never
Mm.
take technology as oh, I'm building technology, so that's an amazing thing. No, again, I serve a purpose. I build technology in order to sell more, in order to underwrite better,
Yeah.
in order to create a better claim process. A lot of the systems we use, we developed in-house, not because developers like to develop, yes, but not because we wanted to develop. I would sometimes prefer to buy these systems, but there's always like a price, of course. We're a startup. We can't spend $50,000 on a Salesforce system or something like that. And B, a lot of the things we do is because it's parametric, it's much linear. So claim systems which exist, and there are amazing, amazing, amazing claim systems that were developed in the last 5 years, which can handle the entire life cycle, unlike when we started back then in 2016, which we didn't have almost anything. We had to build out of necessity systems. Here, a lot of systems already exist, but they're so big and so expensive, and they serve homeowners best and auto best, but there are almost no tools that are able to serve our need, which is a very specific need. And that
Mm.
forces us, for better or worse, to develop in-house, which in turn also increase our appeal, right? Because when we
Yeah.
have more IP now, so hopefully this will be add to the company's evaluations and stuff like that. So there's always, kind of a balance between how much I want to develop and hire engineers versus how much it will cost me to purchase it and things like that. There's always like in everything in computer science, there's always the price, right? It's one and zero domain, but it's anything else but one and zero answers. You want one, you'll get zero. You want zero, you'll get one. And you always have to
Mm.
compromise, which computers don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think parametric insurance has, over the years, an insurance struggled to gain the traction that maybe we thought it was 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe 6, 7 years ago? You look at it's it's fast, it's automated, data driven. It's a market that's projected to hit something crazy like 30 billion by 2030, I think. Like, why do you think it's kind of struggled up to this point to really take off? It's a bit of a gutsy bet, is what I'm saying, building a parametric solution. Yeah.
I think parametric insurance can't exist, at least the one we want to start, without a fast process. If it's becoming a he said, she said versioning, then you're coming
Mhm.
to you become it's becoming a conflict. Think about again. I'll go back to the power outage. Let's say the trigger point is 8 hours. If I now can't monitor the grid actively and I'm waiting for customers to call me, now everybody will call me after 7 hours and a half. Let's say everybody's honest in this world, everything is amazing, and they're starting calling me at 7 hours 58 minutes, right? Or 7 hour 57 minutes because they think it's 8 hours, or maybe they're calling me after five and they feel like it's being 10. We all know
Yeah.
time is relative, and now now you're starting arguing with customers. Give me proof. Show me. No, it's 7 hours and 40 minutes. No, it's 5 hours and 46 minutes and 43 seconds. And becomes like a claim process that goes exactly to the claim process we don't want to be. That can parametric can't succeed if I now need to hire a claim department with adjusters and investigators and others to be able to reconcile claims. It's becoming regular insurance. Then who would want to buy a product if now for every cent I have to pay? I have to fight with you. And we have to remember that our product is not a necessity, it's a luxury product. Again, it's
Yes.
not a luxury in the sense it's not a Ferrari. It's not a luxury car that you drive 160 miles per hour. It's a luxury in the sense that you don't have to have it for the lender, right? The lender won't enforce you to buy parametric.
Yeah.
The courts want to force you to buy it like auto, but we serve a need. And the moment we're able to come to the customer and be, okay, 98% of our claim system will automatically pay customers. You don't come to us to tell us your power was out. We come to you and tell you, hey, Gavin, I know the power is out in your business right now. We started the clock. Hey, Gavin, 7.5 hours passed. You're almost there. Hey, Gavin,
Mm.
8 hours passed. We're starting the claim process. Here's the first notice of loss. Please approve that your power was out. And let's start the process of paying you as soon as possible. And again, everything, of course, is we'll try to pay as soon as possible regarding, but always there are fundamental check we have to do and exclusions. But overall, the goal is to get the money 48, 96 hours tops, if everything is okay, to your bank or maybe to your Venmo in the future and stuff like that. So you have the money available to continue forward without struggling and without going through long processes. And that requires independent monitoring of the stuff you want. Power grid one. If we go into other domains, we have to be able to get specific verification of temperature flux. Now,
Yeah.
if you measure it at the airport, if the weather station is near in Austin Airport, it doesn't mean anything for Bee Cave. Like the weather in airport can now hail at the airport, and here it will be sunny. Hell, me and Mike live in the same community. We live a mile apart. It can hail above his house, and it can be sunshine in my house, above my house. That's how weird sometimes weather in Texas is. If I don't have specific readings at specific radius, I
Yeah.
can't do anything with it. And that's exactly where now technology and the climate tech and sensors enable that in a much bigger scale to be able to get to this resolution. And the resolution just continue to improve. If we have more governmental institutions that give us resolutions of counties and maybe, I don't know, maybe bigger sensors, counties, now we're able to go down to communities with power. We're able to create more granular monitoring, sorry, that enables us to serve better customers and automate the process. If we don't get to 98% automation of claims, we miss the point.
Yeah.
We'll struggle as parametric because we won't provide the service that we need to provide in order to be successful.
Is that how you found positioning it? Because how much of a factor have you, how much do you have to factor in the mentality of Gen Z? they crave affordability, impact, like you just said there. If we're not paying out as quickly as we possibly can, we're not following through on the impact we're selling. Like, and insurance still feels very old school. So for that kind of particular market, I guess the Gen Z type market that are owning businesses or working in businesses, like how did you feel like the best way was to position adaptive? Because again, it could potentially come across as quite old school being an insurance product. So how did you think about that type of market, when your UX, your pricing, or how it's coming across?
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason we consider ourselves, we want to be part of the climate tech and use
Yeah.
insurance as the vessel rather than
Yeah.
vice versa. And
Yeah.
that's also the vision of the company to be to build climate resilience and climate resilience and climate awareness and climate monitoring and whatever climate related. We can find gazillion like AI, you can find any combination of
Yeah.
climate with something. And I think that's how we want to position adaptive. We use insurance as a way to help customers, but it's only one out of many ways we will be able to help customers.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And just before we move on from kind of the grid protect and the product and stuff, one defensibility, we spoke about it when you were raising funds and we were talking about when making introductions, like moats are everything, and your moat is clear here. But like, and I think I asked you this when you were at Delos as well, but just knowing when to not move away from it, but expand out of that initial wedge, as I say, that yours is very much that proprietary climate data, the AI models. Like, when do you think you really do know when it's time to just expand beyond that to new risks, or is it just feels like the right time?
Just feels the right time. And I think at the end of the day, in today's world, let's take Gemini, deep research. You can now do deep research on companies that you couldn't do 5 years ago. You can get all, it can
Hmm.
gather all the publications, everything that is public, and build you profiles of companies that with data you never knew it's out there because if you do manual research. So I think the moats basically will be on the technology side, of course, but most of them will be on the personnel in the startup, on the knowledge. You can't replace knowledge, you can't replace experience. We can argue with that, but at the end of the day, experience is king. And when the people in the team are experienced, they have some mileage there, and they know what to build, they know what they're gonna face, then you leverage everything else. You still build a few moats around it, but I think the biggest moat for adaptive are the people. Is Anne, it's Bethany, it's Jesse, it's Mike, it's myself, it's the developers. That's the biggest moat because if you take our combined knowledge and experience and approaches as well, the synergy of adaptive is one of the most awesome I ever experienced. And we all complete each other. There's no ego there. Really, I know everybody says there's no ego. I don't want to say
Yeah.
we're family. We are as close as family, but it's not family, right? But the synergy in the company and the each took his own domain and each trying to contribute from their experience is awesome. And I think that will be the main factor of adaptive success. Everything else is nice and will develop, but others can build it as well, probably in a few years, in 10 years, in 15 years. There's no such thing as technology that is not replicated. There's no such thing as someone sees an idea and try to do it himself. You can look at Google and AWS, right? AWS started with all the cloud. Google has cloud now. Awesome. Both clouds are amazing, but they're a bit different on the nuances because the founders and the developers and the idea before the idea that started it took a bit of a different approach. One of them, and everybody finds their own, flavor.
Hmm.
So I think that's the main key of adaptive, the people. And I think for every startup, and if I agree to my 2 cents about founding a startup, it's about finding the right people with the right experience. And if you have that, and if not, they don't have enough experience, find the mentors with the right experience for the
Hmm.
blind spots that the founders have. That's the key.
Yeah. And the people in the business right now, before we started recording, what was it, the number five of yous now in
Yeah.
Adaptive?
So
Yeah.
currently we have 5 FTEs, and we are very conservative with spend because we didn't go
Hmm.
live yet. And we're
Yeah.
very conservative with spend. We don't want to create a 400 people organization. We
Yeah.
want to hire, we always, as we always say, if I want to hire someone, I need a good reason to cut my salary in a sense, right? Because I'm cutting the runway. So why would I have this person to cut my runway, to cut my salary in a sense for a few months if we don't raise, and what they can bring to the company that is a multiplier.
Hmm. Hmm. When you made those initial hires, it's a founding team. It's people you trust, that you know, that you've worked with before. But in the, I guess, since we done our last podcast, pre-Gen AI to now, are you prioritizing any traits when you're hiring at the moment that maybe you weren't a year or so ago? I know in that founding team, it's probably going to be a combination of specialists in insurance, climate, and just hardcore generalists, probably a little bit of that. But, for future scaling, are you thinking that you're going to be approaching hiring a little bit different in terms of the traits or skills that you're looking for from people?
So I think data plays a large role here. So
Hmm.
with parametric, the interesting part is the first hire basically was Anne, which is the head of marketing, which is a very unusual hire for a startup. Startup usually start with, more technology and things that build the product, and marketing comes later. Here, because it's
Yeah.
parametric, marketing is crucial because we need to educate the market. The second thing, as I said, except for technology, which I'll put aside for a second, is the data. So we're very
Yeah.
much, I'd like to hire people with data understanding. They don't need to have experts in AI. They don't need to develop ChatGPT. The tools exist there. I need people who can use tools, who are open-minded, who can learn insurance as well. Because hiring developers and people that just can code, there are plenty of them. And some of them are amazing, some of them are a bit less amazing, but they're all good. But finding someone that
Hmm.
can actually code and think business, that's the harder part. And I'm always trying to prioritize that because in insurance, especially in Insurtech and climate in insurance, when you build an MGA and build things like that, you need someone who just don't take instructions and do it and doesn't think. We need people who are thinking, that come up with with use cases, that come up with issues with the designs and see a bigger picture and then just go and dive into the keyboard and create lines of code. And the same thing with Jay, like data was, I would say, the third hire because, and we were waiting for the funds because data is always more expensive. As you go into data, it's
Hmm.
like tech. You basically building the organization and you have to gain momentum. And I think data for us at Hippo, for instance, we started doing data warehouses and data analysis 2 years or maybe 2.5 years into the life of the company. Delos is a bit
Hmm.
different. They were using the wildfire model, so data was there, but it was a very specific data, right? It's a very specific niche of the wildfire.
Yeah.
For us, we're going everywhere. The Jesse, the head of data we have, we're going widespread. She's from radars to climate to new products to whatever. We're going wild because it's going to be a major, major component of the company. And that's where I want also my developers to be oriented at. Again, it's not a must, it's a nice, but I think the more sophisticated developers that will come to the market will be ones that understand business well and also understand how to use data tools better and leverage them. And we can go back to, and one like AI is a tool, right? It's still everybody says developers will be replaced by AI. I don't think it will
Hmm.
happen. I think AI is a great contributor. It saves me tons of time sometimes when starting from scratch, but you still need a good developer that understands the business and can combine everything together to build a product.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I must say, I'm getting a little bit bored of reading on LinkedIn that AI is going to replace engineers, it's going to replace recruiters. Why would we use a recruiter when we can just hire an AI bot? All of this stuff, and it's getting a bit tired already, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe when Skynet comes, and then we all have it. We'll face a different issue. But until then, these are tools that can help us accelerate better. I always love to give the example. I'm a cyclist, and I was going in the Bay Area. One of my rides, I went uphill like 3,000 feet into one of them up the mountain, and I asked my friend, "Tell me something. When is it becoming easier to pedal up?" You know what his answer was? Never, because you just pedal faster. And that's exactly what these tools allow us. It allows us to move faster, but we will
Yeah,
still be hard.
we'll still need to pedal. Yeah, yeah. The it's I'm doing done a lot of searches this year. As you know, I'm very much on the kind of tech side as my sweet spot. But so we've been recruiting a lot of founding engineers, similar stage to you guys, pre-seed through to seed. And the titles have just changed. We're now never looking for a full stack engineer. We're looking for a product focused AI engineer. That's a full stack engineer that's got a bit of exposure to AI. There's no difference there. But the thing that's really, I don't know, I don't like, I'm always like the challenge, but I just think that if you're working for a company like Adaptive that is big on data, or if you're working with a company that's just building a Gen AI solution for, I don't know, reviewing legal contracts or whatever it may be, you have an AI team and you have an engineering team. So why are you trying to find a software engineer that has also built LLMs in production? I don't get it. And as a CTO, I guess I'm just probably having a bit of a vent right now. But like it's
I'm with you.
why are we looking for engineers that have not worked with LLMs in production? You've just hired an AI engineer. That's what he does. So
Yes,
surely just the excitement of working with AI is enough. But I feel like engineers, a lot of fantastic engineers now, and it's concerning me a little bit because I think we're looking for something that doesn't exist now. I don't know why, because the CTOs that are instructing me are way more experienced than I am in the technical field, of course. But I just don't know if the market's there for it just yet, and it's going to be a good few years. I think the excitement alone about an engineer just wanting to work with AI should be enough because if you're going down that route, you are going to, a lot of engineers are going to struggle to get these jobs because they haven't worked with LLMs in production, whatever that means.
I agree, and I think you nailed the nail in the head. Like the thing with full stack, I never believed in full stack engineer. You always have either you struggle on the back end or the
Yeah.
front end, and you can be knowledgeable of both, but there'll always be, again, there are exceptions, of course, but generally
Mm.
speaking, someone is stronger at a specific domain. And if you try to get squeeze both of them from the same person, you end up with nothing. Again, you try everything, you get nothing. And I think an engineer, good engineer that understands AI and understand how to use the tools, and if you put them together, if you need a specific feature with an AI engineer or with AI engineer, and they can work together so they can kind of learn from each other. And now he
Mm.
has something of, yeah, if I develop X, that affects him Y, and if I develop Y, it affects him in X. And now he has
Yeah.
the knowledge of he's doing his niche, but how it affects other domains. That's an advantage, and I think that's what we should aspire for. To have everything in one person. If you find
Mm.
one like that, please send him my way. I'll hire him or her. I don't care. But
Yeah. Yeah.
for the 20 years experience I have, I never found a really someone that I want to hire as a full stack versus spending on back end and front end separately. Because I think
Mm.
the ROI is much bigger, I think, on separating the domains.
Yeah. And what is your advice to a junior or say a midweight or even a junior, just developers in general, but I think there is a bit of a misalignment on where engineers should be focused in terms of, I guess, how do they stand out now? And the obvious thing to say is, well, just go and work with LLMs, because that, or go and work with Gen AI and then you'll be ahead of everyone. But it's easier said than done. Not every company's just working with Gen AI at the bleeding edge of it. So I think that the thing that seems to be talking about getting replaced a lot more is the engineers because it's writing codes. A chat GPT can't do my job. It doesn't have emotional intelligence. It doesn't have empathy. It can't jump on a call and look people in the whites of their eyes and make a call on that. But from an engineer's perspective, I do think it's a really tricky time. And when I get CTOs on the pod, I'm always looking for that opportunity to, from someone like you that's hiring these guys, what you would be advising them to do. Junior, I guess, up to midweight to senior. I don't know.
Yeah, as I said before, use these tools to accelerate your productivity.
Mm.
Learn them. At the end of the day, it's coding. But you will always, like, I remember even when I started, I found an example of Hello World and changed it. So now it's more sophisticated, right? I don't need to find Hello World and change it myself. I can ask ChatGPT, generate me this piece of code. But putting this code into the whole system with the different edge cases, with the different business requirement, I don't think these tools able to do, like if you have the emotional awareness of, you're looking someone in the eyes, I have the business requirement. ChatGPT can create a beautiful code that does A, B, but does it know what's your business requirement and all the edge cases? And for me to write everything to ChatGPT, probably it will be much faster for me to write the code myself and take the template from it and write the code, write the rest of it myself. It doesn't have the awareness of the business, it doesn't have the awareness of the fast changing stuff you
Mm.
find. Suddenly the requirement changes left and right. Like Mike can come with a requirement this morning or Anne, and by nighttime the requirement changes because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
I can plug it in again, but it's not a replacement. It's still, if you have to write it what to do and it generates an output, then you wrote code in English and it gave you
Mm.
code in TypeScript or whatever. You still wrote code in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So use it as a tool, use it to accelerate your output and not to get stuck on the small things that today you don't need to get stuck on, right? Starting an app from scratch is the hardest thing ever. Today, you plug it
So
into ChatGPT or Gemini, it creates the template, and now you're starting 10 miles ahead of where you would start 2 years ago.
yeah, but isn't that now building with intuition, empathy, and that's not really coding. That's what a new term that we're seeing is vibe coding. Like, is that not where what you're kind of describing there? So it's AI accelerated development. So does that concern you or worry you that potentially you start to produce, every startup's nightmare spaghetti code? It's hard to scale. It's impossible to maintain. Or do you think that these models are actually up to a level, if prompted by a top engineer, to produce elegant, scalable systems?
I think it's both. I think the less experienced one will, it's kind of a double-edged sword. If younger engineers, I'll compare it to what we had back when I was in elementary a decade ago.
Hmm. How's that?
We didn't use calculators in the beginning, right? Because all the teachers, the first 3 years, they want you to do all the math all, in your head, right? Because if you use
Yeah,
a
yeah,
calculator from the get-go, you won't get the elementary qualities and understanding of how math works. And everybody can put something in the calculator, especially these days when you don't even have to have a calculator, you have your phone. So I think
hmm
the more junior developers, especially graduates and others, that will be heavily reliant and put themselves into the AI and be heavily reliant on AI to produce everything for them, they'll lose the thought process. I interviewed just a few days ago, I gave an assignment to a graduate, which I'm considering of hiring. And I told him, listen, you can use AI. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to tell you don't use AI. I'm giving you a real world assignment. I don't want you to let's fake
yeah,
it. It's not a lab. But what I'm going to ask you at the end of the day, I care less about the code. I care more about your thought process. Why did you think this should be here? What guided you to
sure.
put this line there? If they go to ChatGPT, ChatGPT won't be able to answer for them why they decide to put this line here and that line there. And that's
Yeah,
where you find, okay, did you think about it or you just went and copied paste from another place? And I think if developers won't do it themselves, again, take the template. That's completely fine. I did it with Hello World.
hmm
But if you don't exercise and train yourself to a thought process in the beginning, you will not gain it when you become more experienced engineer, and you'll be always lacking. It's like you need to learn to crawl, and then only then you can walk. If babies skip the crawling part and walk directly and immediately go to walking, it causes issue down range. The shoulders are weaker, their head posture is different, and there are a lot of researchers about it. Developing is the same thing. It's like you need to learn the basics. You need to put these patterns into your brain, and then you can use tools, and then you can use the calculator. Because if I now use 4 plus 4 in a calculator, I know how to do 4 plus 4. I'm just lazy,
mm.
if I'll give the most abstract example.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Well, look, I'm conscious of our time here. One thing I wanted to glean from you, just as a bit of insight again, third startup in a row, Hippo, Delos, now co-founder of Adaptive. You've hired some fantastic engineering talent and talent across the board, commercially, operationally. Uh, is there anything that you found? So obviously my company is Zanata. We're an exec search company. We are at the moment building this out and it's not ready yet, but we will be like the Carter of early stage comp data. Like that's what we're going to do. We're going to build that and it's going to be free. But it's a really difficult thing to. It takes a long time to generate this data because there's no real pattern. There's no real. Not everyone offers the same comp structure to poach top engineers or top people for their businesses. But just wanted to get some insight from you on, have you felt that anything has particularly worked when you're trying to maybe get those big logos or those experts or those people working for AmFam, etc.? Like, what do you feel works for you in landing these people?
So it's connections, right? It's connecting on a personal level, right? You have to have chemistry. Even if it's remote, you still have to have chemistry.
Yeah.
Recommendation goes far. If you have like a cold introduction with someone, what I like to do is usually start hiring them as contractors. That allows us to kind of go on a few dates. If I had to put the analogy on dating, you won't marry your wife after the interview, right? After the first date, you date a few times, live together, see how it works. Again, in generally speaking, the same thing
Yeah.
with employees, right? You have one interview, two interviews. It doesn't really, it says they have good chemistry. It says maybe you both have good impression about each other because don't forget, when you interview someone, they interview you back. But I found that if possible, of course, start as contractor, give them time to adjust, give yourself time to adjust, see that everything works well, that they are what you expect, that you are what they expect, and then go into commitment, what I call like FTE in a startup and everything. I'm really think it worked well for me for the last few hires I did in a few companies, but again, connections and referrals is key. So
Yeah.
part of it is for I can give advice to young developers is build your network, build your connection pool. Because when you get referred by someone, that goes a long way than a cold introduction on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm a developer. Come
Yeah.
on, I'm 90% of it I won't answer because it's noise. I don't know who you are with all the things that are going on in the digital world. I'm not going to even bother to answer. But if you're coming from someone I trust as a referral, even if I don't need you now, I might speak with you. And maybe in 2 months, I'll need you because startups are super dynamic. Maybe money will come in 2 months. Maybe it will come in 4 months. Maybe suddenly we have such a success. I need 5 developers in a month. So that's the key, I think, for developers. Build your network, build your reputation. And by that, build your network. Don't burn bridges. Don't go into, leave a company in good terms always because you want to keep it's a small industry. People think it's a big world. It's a super small industry tech. Everybody knows about everybody. It's a two off, and I'll know exactly what you did your entire career. And now with
Yeah.
AI, again, bringing AI, we can research the hell out of everybody with very little resources. I don't need to hire a talent hunter or talent someone who gonna do a private detective who's gonna investigate into your past. I can get everything from whatever it's out there.
Hmm. But times are tough at the moment, and I think that's why I want to do it because I think the I think the equity conversation is becoming harder for you guys. I do. I think there's a lot of companies that are now seed companies. They're raising millions. Or AI everywhere, and it's kind of like, who is really going to sell here for 100 million in 3 4 years time? Am I going to see that? Times are tough. Cash is king right now.
Yes.
Hence the how do you then balance that what you just described there with someone that is cash motivated, but you
If they're
but you
cash
but you but you
motivated,
but you, but you know this guy that you don't even need to trust him. You just know this is, sometimes you get those hires, right? Like, this is
yeah,
just the guy. This guy is going to transform how we operate. He's going to accelerate our exit by 12 months. We need to get him, but he wants 200 grand and we can only offer 160. So what do you do? You know?
listen, this is where startup have an issue, right? Have a challenge, and that's where I like to kind of divide people to mercenaries and missionaries.
Mm.
Now
Yeah.
you can be in between, of course. You don't have to be 100% that or that, but startups have to have missionaries. You cannot be a mercenary in a startup. Even if you accelerate my company by tenfold, if I can't afford you, I can't afford you.
Yeah.
It's not that I can now get 200,000 to pay you. I cannot. I can give you 150 and a promise of options that will get you maybe even further. But you have to put your trust in the startup. It has to go both ways. If you want to be
Hmm.
a mercenary, Facebook, Google, and others that can afford you. We're not trying to compete with this. I'll settle for less talent in a sense, but someone
Right.
who can grow with and is invested in my company. Because if I hire someone for 200,000, they have zero investment in my company,
Yeah.
he can leave after a week. So what did I do there? Because he probably go to the next one who offers him 250.
Hmm.
I need people who are missionaries, at least 50% missionaries at any startup up to round A, B, or C even. You need people to be missionaries. After
Yeah.
that, when money flows in, that's a necessity decision.
Yeah. 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 No, makes sense. And yeah, it's never easy. It's never easy. And I think you're right. You'd settle for less talent, more attitudes, more drive, mission driven over someone that just will simply won't move for what they want. It's but it can be a tough call. And
Yes,
I'm assuming the way you want to do it, the best way to motivate is a 4 year best options, 4 years cliff. That's the
yeah.
way you're kind of
For
doing
it's
it,
a
yeah.
standard 4 years, 4 years investment, 1 year cliff. That's how every almost 99.9% of
Yeah,
startups, and
yeah.
generally speaking, RSU
Hmm.
invest this method work as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's finish up here. When are you going live? And what's the plans between April 2025 to December 2025? What's the
So
goals?
going live very soon. We are very soon. That's what I can say for now. The product is built, everything is ready. We're waiting for a few final stuff, and we'll go live. Between now and 20 end of the year, we'll have hopefully a few more products out there already. We'll have more variety on our on our business resiliency platform and stuff like that. That we want to make basically an impression and be a name in the parametric insurance domain and in the climbing to it. So people, when they hear adaptive, they think, oh, this is the company that helps businesses to succeed, to stay afloat, to handle X, Y, and Z, a climate phenomenon or a pain point. That's what we want to be probably by the end of the year and beyond. For now, as I said, we're really focusing on launching our first product, which will go to market, and the sky's the limit. And that's part of the name adaptive is exactly that. I know it's a bit cliche, but that's, I think, in this case, it's right to the term. Like it's what we are. It's what we're gonna be. We're gonna pivot fast. We're gonna, as I said, fail fast and build fast.
Yeah. Yeah, man, sounds exciting. Sounds exciting. We'll be keeping an eye on the launch. I'm sure it will be all promoted on socials, etc. When that happens very soon.
Yes, it will. We
And
have and which will take care of everything for us.
yeah, shout out to Anne. She's actually live on the call just now. But yeah, we'll be watching that. Best of luck, mate. It was really good to have you back on and be able to do another podcast with you. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Gavin. Have an amazing rest of the week.
Cheers.